Now let's return to our top news story today, that the UK's 4 chief medical officers have submitted their conclusions on whether 12 to 15-year-olds should be routinely vaccinated, and it's expected they will approve the extension of the vaccine programme to cover them. Let's talk now to Stephen Jackson, who is a solicitor from Jackson Osborne and has supported claimants in a case against the government to stop the rollout of the vaccine to 12 to 15-year-olds. And do tell our audience why.
Good morning. I'm afraid I can't actually see you, Victoria, for some reason.
Can you hear me, though?
I can hear you. So
Great. Let's crack on then.
Yes. So I'm acting for 12 and 16-year-old sisters who are asking the government to, in fact, go to the court, rather, to ask the government to stop or at least pause the rollout of these COVID-19 vaccines for healthy children. To be clear, this is not an anti-vax campaign, nothing to do with that. Vulnerable children with clinical need will still be able to receive these COVID-19 vaccines from an authorised prescriber. So there's no question of stopping choice for parents and children who need treatment. So I'll just make that point to start with. But what the case then is about is actually quite simple, Victoria. In the first place, we simply say there is no benefit to children. It's fairly well known, I think, amongst the public that children are extremely low risk from COVID-19. And so we simply stop there and say, well, why are we giving these medical treatments to children who just don't need it? We stop there as a matter of law, is what we say. From a legal and ethical perspective, you do not jab healthy children. Simple. But if we need to go further, and this is something which I think is the public may not be quite so aware of, is that there are also very well known harms which are known about this already. So Christopher Chope gave a speech in Parliament very recently, just last week, actually reading out the yellow card reports of harms arising from these vaccines. Now, it might be relatively small in the scheme of things because of how many children or how many young people are looking to be vaccinated, but these are healthy children who are all of a sudden potentially at life-threatening events. And I'm not exaggerating there, just so your readers understand. This is a matter which really has not been debated in the public, and this is why it seems we need to go to court now. The government aren't accepting it. But if we look simply at Pfizer's own trial data, so their own report right at the start, on which these vaccines have been authorised, potentially, on an emergency basis for children, Pfizer's own report indicates some serious harms might be arising if we're vaccinating all the children. So if we take the data and say Pfizer's own data, if you just extrapolate it, move it out to say 10,000 children, that's what, between 5 and 10 schools, so 12 to 15-year-olds, within that population of just 10,000 children, you could be looking at 10 life-threatening events arising. Diarrhea, 800 students perhaps. Headaches, 6,500, 65% of children getting headaches. Why are we giving these vaccines to healthy children to make them ill, even if temporarily?
Okay.
Why on earth would any parent do that?
You say we don't give vaccines to healthy children. We do. We give them various vaccines throughout their childhood when they're healthy to protect them from
Victoria, I say,
various
why are we
conditions.
giving these vaccines
Okay.
to healthy children?
Let me just give you some of the... I mean, you've given various reasons why this case is proceeding. You'll know that the MHRA, which is independent, which is the UK regulator, has approved the Pfizer vaccine for 12 to 15-year-olds, saying it's safe and effective and the benefits outweigh any risks. And they say they've carried out a rigorous review of the vaccine in adolescents. Their chief executive says no extension to an authorisation would be approved unless the expected standards of safety, quality and effectiveness have been met. There are 29 countries across the EU that have started vaccinating children aged 12 or over, or are planning to do so. There's Singapore, there's Japan, there's Israel, there's US. Can I finish the sentence, please? There's the USA, there's China, there's Canada. 7 million 12 to 15-year-olds in the USA have been vaccinated.
Well, we can look at what other countries might want to do, and if they want to stick their heads in the oven or submit children to these vaccines, well, that's fine, but it doesn't mean to say that's what the UK parents would want for their children, nor our government should be doing. If we look at the authorization of these vaccines, they were authorized with a much shortened and emergency timescale some time ago, and without, so far as we now know is clear, without the MHRA actually looking at the raw data which Pfizer relied upon. So what happened is the MHRA have asked Pfizer, say, well, can you please mark your own homework, tell us your conclusions, and it looks, for all intents and purposes, as if it's been rubber stamped. So in terms of the detailed and microscopic examination of this data, that is simply not true, I would suggest. Okay. So what we're actually looking at is the JCVI, who recommend to the government what to do with these vaccines. They have said that this should not be rolled out to the children. That is the expert advice. And what's happening is the government is seeking to go to another source of advice for second opinion, which will say what it wants. Okay. And what we should be looking at is not at what other excuses we can get in order to push this vaccine out, but we come back always to the children. As a matter of medical and legal ethics and law, we always look at the benefit of treatment for the patient. Right. We don't start looking to say, well, we'd rather you take this and have this jab because it's going to benefit the community. As a matter of legal precedent, and the Council of Europe have made a statement on this not that long ago, that is simply contrary to the human rights law.
Okay, I'm going to pause it there, only because I've got to squeeze in another interview before the 1 o'clock news. I'm so sorry, but thank you.
Maybe, Victoria, just one last point.
Briefly.
If you wish to know a little bit more about the details, because there's a lot here, they simply need to Google COVID-19 Assembly, Beverly Turner, and they will find out lots more information as to what this case is about, and they can make their own minds up, perhaps.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Victoria.